Ed Adams. Welcome back to Upfront. We're doing this virtual now, I guess.
I see. We're zooming it.
Yeah.
Everybody see me do the robot now.
Yeah, you got to do the robot to do this. But we brought you back on because AAFCA, the African American Film Critics Association, has been offering some amazing suggestions for those of us that are going through this CoronaStorm and are stuck at home. Some great television and film options that you can tune into as you're at home and doing whatever it is that you're doing. You want to catch a great movie or you want to watch a really good television series. And there's a list that you guys have been posting on your website. And let's just kind of go through a couple of these. I'm going to point out two in particular, but you guys have listed Queen Sono, which is on Netflix, which is an amazing new series, and show that I actually a film that I got to watch recently, and that was Uncorked, starring Cornelius and Niecy Nash. So let's talk about that one because that was such a great love story.
You know what? This is a film. It's kind of a little bit of a coming of age, but I think it's really interesting because it shows really just another example of a modern African American family, right? We have the same issues that a lot of other people have, maybe of a different race or a different hue or a different, or different nationality. But the reality of it is that this is an American story. Sometimes children want to make their own decisions and not follow the family business. We've seen this time and time again for, white stories, but more and more, we're starting to see these stories happen in television and film. And this is a very special one because he's taking a choice that is completely different and unexpected that you would typically see when a young Black man decides he wants to become a sommelier.
Yeah, and explain that to our listeners.
A sommelier is it's hard to explain. Let me try this again. A sommelier is a wine expert. They're the kind of person like a cigar aficionado. They're the person who picks and selects and can recognize and recommend wines. So they're known for doing pairings. They're also hired by top establishments to do their wine selections in all their restaurants and hotels. They're also the kind of people that they would bring into wine manufacturers or makers to kind of develop flavors and profiles. So it's a very, very skilled profession to be in. And yet it's very few African Americans or Blacks around the world who actually have that role.
And this film was written and directed by Prentice Penny, who is also one of the writers and producers for one of our favorite shows, Insecure, which is also coming back to HBO this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a long pedigree. I mean, first starting off with Girlfriends and Brooklyn Nine-Nine and so many other shows that, I mean, this was, I think it's his third or fourth film that he's actually directed, but he wrote and directed this film. And it has a lot of heart and it has a lot of his fingerprints in it because he really understands how to tell Black stories that are close to the ground and relatable. And I think this film does a really good job of it.
Yeah. Let's also talk about another film, which is The Atlanta Child Missing and Murdered. Which is a series that is currently running on HBO. And this is something that I think is near and dear to all of us that live here in the city of Atlanta. So much has been said about these murders that took place back in the late 70s, early 80s. And so why do you think this is and yes, I get it. We're in sort of a gloomy situation right now with the CoronaStorm, but why do you think that this is definitely something worth checking out?
Can I say I love you say CoronaStorm? That's kind of cool. I love it.
And we're in the midst of a CoronaStorm.
Corona-nado. Yeah, it's this. I mean, so this docuseries it hits me close to home because those kids would be my age if they were still alive. I grew up in that period.
Yeah.
In one of those neighborhoods, actually. So watching it for me is kind of a flashback. It takes me immediately back to that time. But between the periods of 1979 and 1981, I mean, tens of young Black kids went missing and were murdered. And there was just a lot of questions about who was killing it and killing these kids. And during that time, there was a lot of racial tension started to bubble up because we needed to know. And there were so many conspiracies, so many things were happening. You know, we talk about being locked down right now, but I mean, I remember we had curfews. We were locked down. Kids could not go outside after dark. Typically, you had to be in-house by 8 p.m. And there were police monitoring the neighborhoods. You had like civic groups. You had Muslims. You had everybody patrolling the streets. It was a very tense time. And this docuseries kind of brings you back. The first episode kind of puts you back into Atlanta at the time to explain what Atlanta is and why it's so unusual for this to be happening, because this is a Black Mecca. I mean, this was the Black Wall Street at the time, the new Black Wall Street, I should say, with Auburn Avenue. But it does kind of, it kind of jars you to realize that this was like senseless, crazy serial killer or killers. We don't know. We do know that Wayne Williams was convicted for them and penned for 2 of the murders, but that doesn't explain the others. But the city of Atlanta Police Department shut down the investigation, and that was the end of it. It was like, case closed, let's move on, because we needed Atlanta to prosper because of the airport. I mean, there's a lot of stories about it. A lot of people got a little bit of exposure about this murder case with Netflix series Mindhunters. Season 2 kind of delves into it, and it kind of explains where the mystery of the what happens with the other kids that went unsolved, and this kind of picks up where that left off. So I'm really excited about the series. You know, I would say have Kleenex nearby. It's touching, it's moving. It'll jar you to make you feel something special.
Yeah. So let's take it up a notch.
Yay!
Let's talk about some really good news. One of our favorite television shows, the OWN series, the Ava DuVernay series, Queen Sugar, was recently selected for, and let me make sure I'm saying this correctly, a Television Academy honor. So Ed, explain to our listeners what that actually means, because this is very different from an Emmy Award, correct?
So the Television Academy, which is the same body that produces the Emmys every year and gives those awards, they recognize 6 television series that recognize the impact that they have on society through their programming and storytelling, right?
Okay.
So they pick 6 series 6 shows every year. And this year we have 2, Queen Sugar being one and Watchmen being the other.
Okay. Cool. And so I think I explained to you offline when I interviewed Tina Lifford, who's one of the stars of the show last year during the Bronze Lens, the Women Superstars Luncheon, that Queen Sugar is really, I'd say, probably the best representation of African-American life on television right now. So for them to receive this honor is absolutely amazing. So really
Yeah.
for them.
I mean, absolutely. And I think the thing that makes it stand out, and which I think it deserves this award, is that it's not just seeing a Black family on television. It's Black families who go through the same issues that we recognize, who have the same types of issues, you know, dealing with like Black women with lupus, abuse, you know, all those different things, forgiveness, how we forgive and how we love and how we hate, and all of those things that we go through. Our relationships do come from a different lens that a lot of people may not always understand. You know, one of the things I've learned, and I think people should see, is that when we, as people of color, we're used to looking at a very broad lens. We learn how to find ourselves in white people, but it doesn't necessarily work the other way around. They cannot see the other way. When the spectrum hits out, they can't look back in. And I think that when you have a show like this, you can have that narrow focus about us, but still go through that larger prism, because women who have lupus can understand that story. Women who've been abused and get into new relationships or deal with their toxicity, they understand that story. So I think it's, yeah, absolutely. It deserves the accolades. I'm very happy that it was selected.
Yeah. Well, Ed, thank you so much for being a guest today on Upfront. Where can our listeners see a listing of all of the other suggested shows that you guys are promoting for this week?
Well, we post every week on kaleidoscopereviews.com, and up soon you'll be able to see all the complete list on the AAFCA.com website. And you can always follow us on social media at the AAFCA on Twitter and AAFCA on Instagram, where you'll see the complete list, and search for African American Film Critics Association on Facebook. I think I said it. Yes.
Once again, thank you so much for being a guest today, and you continue to stay safe during this Corona storm.
Thank you. Wear your Corona umbrella.